Hey, what's up guys? Kenny over here at the Young Power Sports in Pleasant View. I want to do a quick tip on how to get these steering stems out of a triple clamp. I don't know if any of you have ever had trouble with this before, but I've seen mistakes made before where people are under the misconception that the stem presses through the top. It actually doesn't. There's a snap ring that's in here, or sometimes there'll be a shoulder machined into the shaft that will catch and sit into a seat that's in the triple clamp itself. So what we're going to do is show how this is pressed out of here. Now you can see that this bearing is obviously no good. It's destroyed. The bearing's gone. The race is totally rusted. The seal is bad. So it's time for a new seal or a new bearing. But what I want to talk to you about is how to set this up in the press. You're going to have to press this out. Never strike this with a hammer. You'll end up just damaging the aluminum and you won't have enough pressure to push it out. You'll just end up ruining the piece. Under some situations, just by design of the triple clamp, this one just happens to be in a position where we can set it on a flat surface and it won't be putting any pressure on the outer ends of the clamp itself. Now some triple clamps, I don't have another bottom here to show you, but some triple clamps, in fact the majority that I've dealt with, rest just a little bit below the bottom of this pin. And so you end up having to use some kind of a collar or a piece of pipe or something to support the triple clamp right in the center as you press. Never place it on the outside ends with a piece of wood or other pieces of metal. Never block it up on the outside ends. You'll end up bending the clamp or you could break the clamp. But in this particular situation, this is a DRZ 400, an older DRZ, I don't know what year this is, 07 or something, 06. And this sits down low enough that we can actually set it on our plate, on our press, and the diameter is large enough, got an 1.5 inch hole here, the diameter is large enough that I can just set it in the center and we can just press. So this one just happens to be convenient the way it's by design. Like I say, other clamps, the fork tube clamps will be lower than the center, and if you don't put something in the middle, you'll end up bending the clamp or breaking the clamp. So just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and press this, and I'm going to grab you want to make sure you have it set up square, and then use something solid. I'll use an old bottom crank pin. That's a nice solid piece. I'm going to scoot this back so we get in the center of our anvil here, or as close to it as possible. Make sure that we're secure on the bottle jack or whatever you use for your press. And just before I get there, I'm going to make sure, just because this pin was slightly protruded from the bottom, I can feel where it's hitting on the edges of the hole. I'm just going to make sure it's somewhere in the center. I don't want to touch any of the edges on there. I could damage the pin. I'm just going to put a little pressure on it. And that initial pop, that's normal. Don't be alarmed by that. It's just breaking free. Remember, this is a high interference fit, and so it's going to have that break free. It's going to have that stiction. Once it breaks free, it should press pretty smoothly. Okay, now our pin's out. Like I say, you will never you'll never press that out of there with a hammer. You'll just end up doing damage. So this one does not have a snap ring on the end of it. This is one that, like I said earlier, when they machine this shaft, they leave they don't have a relief. They have a land on the end of this here. So this is a wider diameter than the portion that's pressed into the triple clamp. And then down in here, when they machine this, they leave a land for that to press against. So when you seat it, you'll feel it bottom out. Okay, so we're gonna go vapor home this and clean it up, and then we're gonna press the new bearing on it. Okay, so the next step in the project is to press the new bearing onto the old stem. We need to get this, we're going to press the bearing and we're going to press this into the stem at the same time. What we need to do is get what you'll need is a tool that matches the ID of the race, or not the ID of the race, but the inner race. You only want to press on the race itself. You never want to apply any pressure to the cage or the rollers. You'll damage the bearing and then it'll be no good. Now, in most cases, the bearings, top and bottom, will be two different part numbers. In this case, with this DRZ 400, they're the same part number. Even the seal is the same part number. So it's symmetrical, you can put it either way. But you'll want to note that, because if you press the wrong one onto the bottom, then you're going to end up having to push it back off. You're going to find out after you're trying to install the triple clamp that you've got the bearings located incorrectly. So, but in this case, they're the same. And so just make sure you verify that before you move forward in your own project. Okay, before we put this pin back into our piece, which Luis got all cleaned up here, just want to get all that old corrosion out of this bore and make sure that when we press it back in, it's nice and smooth. The Vapor Run does a nice job of cleaning all the corrosion off there. That was just a quick blast. But one thing I want to do is there's a little bit of scarring on this as well, on the pin itself. And I've got a piece of 400 emery cloth, and I'm just going to polish this up. I don't want to remove a lot of material. I still want it to be a nice tight fit. But what I'm going to do is just clean that up, so when I do press it, it just goes in nice and easy. And make sure when you clamp that, you either put some kind of a protection on the vise jaws themselves, or make sure you have like some of these Racetech aluminum vise jaws or aluminum jaws, something equivalent. And this only takes a quick second just to take any burrs and corrosion and whatever else off. It's going to make putting it back together and go that much smoother. This works great for, I use like 400 or 600 grit on transmission shafts and shift shaft pins and things like that. It makes everything just shift and move that much smoother. There, now it's nice and smooth. This should press in nice. That's good. Okay, so I have several of these old bearing races that I've saved. This just happens to be off of an old KTM. It's the left side inner race for the crank main bearing. And what I did is I just end up sanding out with a porting tool and a sander bit just to get the inside diameter just enough so it'll slip over a shaft like this. And I have several that I've just made and saved over the years. All kinds of different collars that I have for different steering stems, because they're all different diameters. But what you need is you need this diameter right here is what's going to press into the lower clamp, and that's an interference fit. It's going to be a tight fit. Then the new bearing is going to press on right here and will be a press fit and stay. What we need is something that can press perfectly against that race, but slip on and slide back off with no effort. Because we don't want to press it on and then have this piece be stuck on here as well, our tool. So I've modified that just ever so slightly, just so it's a nice interference or clearance fit on there. So let's go ahead and press that and watch how it works. So we'll take, first of all, let's get the seal that we need. Get the bearing we're going to use, and then we'll use this to jig up our triple clamp. We'll place that in, and should have a piece of pipe. I would really rather have one that sits perfectly on that. There's a piece of pipe like this, but it's short.
How about this one?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Thanks. Basically, you want to do the same thing that we did on the top side. You need something that can sit right on this or around here, just so long as it's supporting the center. Like I said, you never want to press supporting the outside end. Okay, and that's it. So there's our stem, press back in, and that's how it sat. Originally it sat just slightly protruded from the bottom. So that's bottomed all the way out. Now we're going to push our bearing on. First our seal. Make sure it's facing the correct direction. This is going to come up and sit into the bottom of the the tube of the frame there. And it's actually not a bad idea before you press this to go ahead and put all the grease in it, because once it's on there, it's a little bit more difficult to grease. You just use a piece or some rubber gloves and some good bearing grease, and you'll smash all the grease in, just like Luis is doing right here. He's doing a perfect job. That's exactly how you do it. And now we'll put that on that steering stem. Except I see one problem here, Luis. The bearing's the other way. That's okay. We didn't press it yet.
Yep.
Okay, so now we got our stem in. Luis has got our bearing all greased up. So now in order to press this onto this diameter, we only want to press right here on that inner race, like I was saying. So we slide our tool over our old bearing race, which is going to sit right on that. It's going to sit right up against it without applying any pressure to the cage. Okay? And if you don't have a nice sleeve like this that will fit over and give something solid for that tool to sit against for the race, then what you'll have to do at that point is you're going to have to raise the floor or the base of your the cross beam of your press up, so you can set this on your plate and press it down in like so. We just so happen to have a collar that works and slides over our steering stem really nice. It just gives just enough clearance, and it also sits perfectly over our hole in the center. So we don't have to do much adjustment with our press. We can go ahead and just press it as it is. I'm going to go ahead and relieve some of the pressure here. Take my old brass pin out of the hydraulic pump off of an old snowcat. Set that on there. We're going to press it in. hear the press bottom out. You can hear when it's all the way. That's as tight as it can go. You don't need to go anymore. We'll set this out of the way. Okay, now we've got that pressed on there. Our press tool slid right off. It's no problem. And now, because we didn't put any pressure on the outside edge of the cage or the bearing, you can see that it still moves freely, it's not damaged, and it should sit right in the race and steer the machine very smoothly, no problem. And that's how you install the lower steering bearing. Now the upper obviously just sets in, the race gets pounded into the frame, but then the upper bearing just, it's a slip fit and will just slide on. You don't have to have a press. This is the only one you need the press for. So anyways, that's it for how to press a lower steering bearing. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us today, and think young. We'll talk to you soon.